So the leaks for Boruto 2 Blue Vortex Chapter 29 have just been released, and it didn't seem like we were gonna get anything for the sneak peek this time around. However, I don't know if it was because of a holiday scheduling thing, but we do end up seeing that it has been released quite a bit later than it was supposed to. But here is what we get for the sneak peek leak. We get to see Kawaki. Kawaki is in the air with his karma on, and he seems to be pulling towards his staff using some sort of gravitational powers, as it doesn't appear like his staff was with him. So what is quite interesting about this page, and to be 100% honest, this has been the most action oriented sneak peek that we have gotten. In the past few sneak peeks that we've had, the other sneak peeks didn't really show too much that was going on, maybe an interesting conversation here and there, but it wasn't anything action oriented. But for this one, we see something more action oriented. Let me know in general which sneak peek has been your personal favorite, but for this one, I do believe that there's a few things that we can extrapolate. As one thing that we see is that Kawaki is in the air, but we haven't been shown any of the Senju apart from Jiro himself being able to fight in the air. And why is that the case that Kawaki would then be in the air, especially bringing his staff towards him? I don't personally know why, but there are a few things that I could potentially see being the case as to why Kawaki is doing this. The first thing is that we could actually be seeing Kawaki using some sort of an attack, as this is a similar move, or at least flying up and then using your staff towards a move is something that we have seen Ishiki do in the past. If you do actually remember, he was doing this when he was fighting versus Baryon Naruto, after Naruto basically used up that transformation. But in the process of looking for Kawaki, he ended up flying to the sky and using his Daikokoden ability to create multiple different chakra rods that were supposed to go and hit Kawaki or potentially find him, destroy the area around him to be able to do so. I do believe that we could potentially be seeing something similar, not in something that would have a widespread attack, but if Kawaki is able to go into the air and pinpoint different chakra rods to be hitting multiple of the Senju in various different locations, we could potentially be seeing Kawaki, who is ultimately targeting multiple Senju at a time and hitting them with precision-based attack using the chakra rods, which would definitely be something that makes sense and actually works. Or another thing that we could potentially be seeing Kawaki doing is making his way towards another side of the battle. He has maybe destroyed a couple of Senju in his vicinity, and he is now moving to go deal with other clones from Mamushi, wherever Shikamaru and Inogen end up directing him. This is another possibility. But one thing that you guys may have noticed in Kawaki's karma design is that it is a lot closer to True Essence karma, but it actually still isn't True Essence karma, as we did see a similar karma pattern to Kawaki use the karma a second time after getting this massive upgrade from Amato, where Amato ultimately ended up increasing his power potential. But after that, we saw that his karma pattern was a lot closer to True Essence. The only thing that is really missing is Kawaki's horns. I really wonder if we'll end up seeing Kawaki's horns. However, one thing that is also as intriguing is the fact that Kawaki's karma pattern wasn't like this until he ended up getting these upgrades from Amato. So by getting upgraded by Amato, we see that Kawaki's karma proficiency has increased. This could be due to two reasons. Maybe Kawaki over these past few months has been fighting a lot more ever since the Senju have been introduced, especially with his karma. So now his karma is starting to adapt. Or it is simply due to what Amato did. By increasing Kawaki's karma potential, he has now granted Kawaki a higher karma proficiency, where now all that Kawaki will have to do is get to tap into True Essence karma. Whether it is an emotional situation that Kawaki is missing, or he has simply not chosen to use the ability, is something I definitely believe that we will find out over the next few chapters that are released. But what I do think we could end up seeing in this chapter 2 is Kawaki and Boruto, who both end up using the karma versus Mamushi. One thing that could be interesting is that we don't actually get to see Boruto much in this chapter, and it ends up just showing us Kawaki and other fighters. There's multiple different routes that this chapter can end up going with. But in my personal opinion, I do really see the possibility of Boruto and Kawaki using the karma in this battle. But one thing that we definitely have to pay attention to is Hidari potentially making a move. This is something that I believe a lot of people are forgetting. We have to remember that we had a Hidari and a Sasuke and a Sarada panel that was shown to us when Kashin Koji was looking at the scrolls. So if the scroll information is matching up with this particular battle, we should be seeing Hidari make a move. I don't know if it is because Mamushi ends up making a move towards Sarada and then it does anger Hidari and then Hidari decides to pop up. You have to remember the only person that Mamushi really fears at the moment, or at least we have been told he fears, is Juro. So he maybe didn't keep in mind that Hidari's target is Sarada, and as he splits, he becomes more reckless and starts targeting Sarada to anybody in his vicinity. And thus, we have a Hidari who makes a move who's like, yo, chill, this is my target. I'm supposed to be the one doing battle against her, which promptly ends up leading Sarada to being the one who ends up fighting versus Hidari. That is definitely an outcome that we could see take place. But one thing that I would definitely like to see is Kawaki maybe using different styles, different forms, his own method of using the karma's abilities. I would definitely like to see a discussion of True Essence Karma for sure. But also Amato. Are we going to see Amato reveal a lot more information, especially due to the fact that out of all of the other targets that we have been seeing turn into Senju, Amato must know more about Bug due to Bug's involvement in Kara. So seeing the resemblance that he may have to Bug, we all know that the tree transformation that takes place, or at least we the audience know that the tree transformation that takes place does so by using the host who ends up becoming the tree, and then their chakra is siphoned from the Senju, but Amato will come to a similar deduction by getting more information on the Senju, especially by observing this fight. I do believe Amato's observations are going to be quite key in maybe us having some hints of him being a villain, something more elaborate going on in Amato's side. That could be a potential option. But ultimately, seeing the Senju in the leaf is going to be critical. And are we going to see Mamushi make his first contact with Ida? That's also going to be something that would be quite intriguing to see takes place. And Damon, we can't forget about Damon. I know we're seeing the karma, I know we're seeing all these various abilities that we love to see going on, but Damon is the person who's really supposed to be fighting with Ida, and I really want to see, at least in this chapter, we see Damon meet with one of the clones. At least we see an interaction between one of them. Not only are we learning more about Mamushi's abilities and how it may work on other people, we are learning more about Damon's. And Damon's are the ones that are truly important right now. How does Damon really stack up versus Boruto and Kawaki? Didn't look too impressed with Boruto's Uzushiko. He was like, oh, that's cool. But you didn't really intrigue him like he was intrigued with Himawari's powers. Is Damon going to show something wonderful in this arc, or is it going to be a massive blunder for Damon? Is it due to Mamushi's abilities, basically allowing him to hold off with a character like Damon who has to fight versus multiple clones and is not capable of being by Ida? Or is it because Damon actually is defeated by Mamushi and not just stalled? That would be something that is quite interesting to see take place, as there are a lot of mysteries with Damon. And how exactly does Damon reflection ability work when he is fighting versus multiple different people? There are multiple things that we could definitely see be described in this arc, and I'd love to hear your predictions. My prediction for this chapter, I believe that it's probably going to start right where we left off. Either we get to see more of Boruto using the karma, and then we move on to Kawaki, or we're simply not going to start right where we began last time. We're going to see what happened to the other people who are fighting in their particular part, and then we're going to see exactly how Mamushi ends up cloning to get those other fighters involved, where we ultimately see Kawaki who ends up fighting, and we see the likes of Chocho, Sarada, all these various characters, Team 10 are involved. We also have to remember that in the future we did see that Himawari ends up dying, and since we do know that Mamushi is not trying to kill Himawari, it could be in an act of protection to somebody, or a citizen of Konoha, or it could be due to something completely different, maybe a building crashing and then and then Himawari accidentally ends up being in the way, which causes her more problems. But this will most likely take place later on in the chapter, but keeping an eye on Himawari is going to be important to see whether that future comes to be. What I ultimately believe that we're going to see near the end of that chapter, near the end of this chapter to be more particular, is going to see either Damon make an appearance with Mamushi, or we see Mamushi end up seeing Ida for the first time, which will completely scare Ida. I do think that the Ida part is quite important. Alongside the Damon part, we're definitely going to see Damon fight versus Mamushi, but seeing Ida versus Mamushi in a sense, seeing if she actually can fight. There are different statements out there. I can't remember all of them, but there is potential for Ida to just not like to fight, but can still fight, still be a fighter on Jigen's level, or she's only on Jigen's level due to her charm ability / omnipotence. That could also be something that is shown to us. And seeing if Ida's charm ability works on Mamushi. Yes, we have Mamushi low-key see Ida when she was using the Sharingan, but it wasn't close proximity to Ida, and we know that looking at Ida's eyes is one of the ways of you being affected. So maybe due to the distance, her ability was not able to work. So now that Mamushi is a lot closer to Ida, her using that ability of charm, is it going to work or not, would really be indicative of how much Otsutsuki these Senjus are, due to them being from the Ten Tails and Otsutsuki tool, and them also having Ishiki's DNA, Ko's DNA, and a little bit of Shibai's DNA added into the mix. So will that be something that is shown to us, that these guys have Otsutsuki traits? Some of them can fly like Jiro. There's multiple different routes that we could have Ikimoto go when it comes to the Senju in this battle, but I do believe that either we're learning more about Kawaki's karma, True Essence karma, or that either we're seeing more of Mamushi fighting versus these other characters, or we're going to see Momoshiki and Boruto a flashback, just like we usually get when somebody gets some sort of a power up. We see a flashback that led up to it, and then we see that Momoshiki actually took on the deal that Boruto ended up giving him. This would be something that makes quite a bit of sense. But those are my predictions. Let me know what you think. It's been your boy Dynasty, and I'm out, bruh.